That's right, kids. The internet writes in ink.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Hey, I'm Dave Jackson from the schoolofpodcasting.com, where I help you plan, launch, grow, and if you want to, monetize your podcast. The website, schoolofpodcasting.com. And today, I want to talk about something I saw on the internets. And this is from our good friend Holly out in a Facebook group. She says, I'm trying to grow my podcast. We're only getting 50 downloads a week. But then later she says, we're trying not to promote it much in our personal circles since we talk about our real lives and working, etc., and don't really want to mess or mix our private lives and the pod. Maybe that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. It really is. And she says, but we thought it would let us be more honest on our podcast. So there are a couple of things here. Number one, you want your whole family to know about this because, I mean, we want everybody to know, right? Where you can't go, I want the whole world to listen to my podcast except that guy, her, and him in the back. Yeah, no, don't let you listen. That's not the way the internet works. And so you want your family, your friends, your coworkers to know about your show. In fact, have some business cards made. Here's one for the Akron podcast. And on the back, it got the old QR code as the autofocus goes crazy here. And, put those in there. When I was doing web design, I got a ton of referrals from my sister-in-law because she would run into teachers. She's a teacher. So you want people knowing you have a podcast. So let's say your cousin, you give him a bunch of business cards and you do a show about dog breeding. And somebody goes, man, I just can't get my new puppy that we got for Christmas to behave. You're like, hey, my cousin knows. Here, check out his podcast. Here's his card. You can get referrals from people. Now, if you go, yeah, I kind of don't want them to listen because we're kind of talking about them. Well, again, keep in mind that they're probably eventually going to hear it. And if you're saying things you wouldn't say to their face, that's a red flag. You don't want to do that. Keep in mind your spouses, your kids, your parents, they didn't ask to be on the podcast. So keep that in mind. Now, why do I say this? Because it happened to me. Now, one other thing before I get to my story, especially for the ladies, if you are doing a podcast where you're talking about intimate parts of your life, you really want to use a pseudonym. Like, if your name is Holly, maybe you're Susan or Jill or Mary or Mildred or something, but don't use your real name. Well, why is that, Dave? Because guys are creepy. It's as simple as that. And if you're doing video where you're on screen, yeah, definitely. Why? Guys are creepy. So you might want to consider using a pseudonym or just one name. Hey, I'm Mary from the blah, blah, blah podcast. But let me tell you a story. I do a show called Building a Better Dave. I'll put the graphic right here. And it is a show where I talk about whatever the heck I want to, because apparently I love the sound of my own voice. I don't know. It's the best $7 therapy there is. And so when I first started, I thought I would work a little blue. And I did an episode. I was like, hey, if Amish people don't have electricity, then how do they have cameras? And what would an Amish porn sound like? So, pull my finger jokes like, oh, Zebediah, I see your barn is raised. And what was fun is I started dating a person, and it was time to meet the kids. And so the 16-year-old went up and Googled Dave Jackson, and what came up? Amish porn. Yeah, and who did she tell? Grandma. Yeah, so now luckily Grandma thought it was funny, but it is a case where it was still out there. And even if I pull that episode down now, a bunch of people downloaded it, not much, maybe 80 people. Again, it's kind of a boring podcast. It's more of a therapy show for me, but there are people that have it. So if for some reason, somebody said, does anybody have a copy of this? Years later, it might come up. So I've heard of people getting fired from their actual day job because they voiced something that was an extreme opinion on their show, and their boss heard it and went, wow, this guy's kind of a sicko. Let's get him off the team. So keep that in mind that the internet, it does kind of write in ink. Now, she mentioned about growing your podcast. If you need help with that, I would love to help you. Simply go over to schoolofpodcasting.com and I do one-on-one consulting. There's private tutorials and things like that. And before we leave, of course, be sure to like and subscribe
And I don't know why, but we're smashing the bell. The bell didn't do anything to me. If you would just like to just lightly click on it, the bell, we don't need to smash it, but you can. Or you can go over to School of Podcasting, see me over there, or just stick around for the next video. Thanks for watching.